When I made the video, I really disliked Jake Paul. Now, I don't dislike him. I understand him. I want to make something clear. I would still kick the living fuck out of him.
Andrew Tate absolutely destroyed Jake Paul, shredding him with no hesitation. He called Jake out harshly, describing him as, without a doubt, a total jerk. It was a truly glorious takedown.
Because he's allowed himself to become the biggest clown on the internet, and now he's famous, right? Because he's an idiot. But he has a bunch of money, so he gets...
Tate dragged Jake through the mud, accusing him of tarnishing boxing, a sport cherished by billions, and dragging its reputation down. As if that wasn't enough, Jake had to involve a living legend, Mike Tyson, in his chaotic circus of a fight. Jake didn't just ruin the event, he disrespected Tyson's entire legacy in the process.
I'm not some washed-up UFC fighter. I'm not smaller than him. I would beat the living shit out of him, and if he wants to fight, I'll fight him any day of the week, and I'll fucking wreck him.
And for what? A few more Instagram clicks? Andrew Tate isn't having any of it. He directly blamed Jake for the entire fiasco, calling it a disgrace to combat sports and a slap in the face to Tyson's legendary career. The worst part? Jake doesn't even have the decency to feel ashamed. It's shamelessness at its peak, and Andrew is speaking out, refusing to stay silent.
However, I do understand what he's doing. I understand that he is very, very smart, even with his marketing angle. I'm just a YouTuber. You're not just a YouTuber. You're a full-grown man with the best coaches in the world who's dedicated his life to learning how to box for years. You know how to box. You're not a complete amateur. You know how to box very well. 3, 4, 5 years of training combat sports. You can box. The guy's not a jackass.
Andrew Tate completely tore into Jake Paul on live TV, and frankly, it was long overdue. Jake, the self-proclaimed boxing savior with a fight record as dubious as his haircuts, 6 wins, 1 loss, has a fan base that's more invested in his TikToks than his punches. Yet, he struts around like he's reinvented the sport. Enter Andrew Tate. 76 professional kickboxing wins, 23 knockouts, and 0 tolerance for Jake's YouTube boxing circus. If boxing were a real sport, not Jake's personal social media stage, he wouldn't even make it past the tryouts. Tate made it clear, Jake doesn't belong.
I made a video that called out Jake Paul.
$3 million. You put 3, I put 3. Winner takes all. You know my name, Andrew Tate. I will fight you any day, anytime. Let's fucking go. If I were to fight Jake Paul, I would take it completely seriously as a real fight, and I'd whoop his ass. I'd beat him. Jake, everyone thinks he's just...
Jake's latest stunt, dragging a 58-year-old Mike Tyson out of retirement for a so-called fight, is beyond ridiculous. Tyson is a legend, a man who's earned his place in the Boxing Hall of Fame and deserves his time in retirement. Yet Jake thought it'd be amusing to slap Tyson's name on a pay-per-view event and call it a fight. Andrew Tate didn't hold back, calling it exactly what it is, a joke and not a funny one. This isn't boxing. It's an ego trip for content creators, and Tate's here to put an end to this circus once and for all.
just a YouTuber. He is a young man training with Canelo and Ryan Garcia.
When I made the video, I really disliked Jake Paul. Now, I don't dislike him. I understand.
Tate, a guy who's fought elite athletes for over a decade, called out Jake for padding his record with opponents who either don't belong in a ring or are just collecting retirement checks. Let's recap Jake's greatest hits, shall we? A YouTuber, a retired basketball player, and a series of former MMA fighters with boxing skills as sharp as a butter knife. Oh, and don't forget the Mike Tyson fiasco. If Jake spent half as much time training as he does picking easy opponents, maybe we'd respect him. But here we are, still waiting for something real.
I challenged him because he is a very fortunate young man. And he's fortunate because he's extremely rich, because he's allowed himself to become the biggest clown on the internet, and now he's famous, right? Because he's an idiot. But he has a bunch of money, so he gets to...
When Tate called Jake a clown, it wasn't just trash talk, it was the truth. Jake Paul is the guy who shows up to a costume party in a suit, calling himself James Bond. He's playing dress up, and it's painfully obvious. Tate's challenge to Jake was simple. Stop hiding behind gimmicks, step into the ring with a real fighter, and show us if you've got more than just Instagram captions. Tate has spent years mastering his craft, facing opponents who could actually punch back, while Jake's been too busy promoting himself on social media and flexing on TikTok. He's the guy who skips practice but still wants to be team captain. It's embarrassing, really. If these two ever face off in the ring, Tate won't just win. He'll dismantle Jake in front of his own fanbase. And honestly, it'll be the reality check Jake's been desperately avoiding.
But I still whoop his ass. but I would whoop his ass. But he wouldn't take a fight against me because when he loses, I'm not nearly on his level of fame, right? So like he lost to who? Whereas if he loses to Conor McGregor, it's no big deal. Well, he lost to Conor McGregor, who cares, right? That's what it's about. But yeah,
It's still good for him.
Yeah, it's money.
Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson at this stage of Tyson's life is like challenging a retired Olympian to a sprint and calling it a fair race. It's disrespectful, desperate, and entirely on brand for Jake. Andrew Tate didn't mince words about it, and neither should we. Fighting someone 31 years older than you isn't competition, it's elder abuse. While Tate wouldn't stoop that low, Jake likely would, because he seems to lack both humanity and common sense. On paper, Jake and Tate might seem evenly matched. Both are over 6 feet tall and weigh between 190 and 200 pounds. But experience and skill aren't written on paper, and that's where Jake doesn't stand a chance. Tate has been fighting for over a decade, building a career with discipline and skill. Jake, he's been boxing for 4 years, most of which he spent figuring out how to make his next fight go viral. Jake Paul isn't a boxer. He's a walking brand deal trying to stay relevant.
I'm ready. Come on. Fight. Hey. Go fight. Hey. Fight. Hey. Go fight. Hey. Hey. Work. Hey. Work. Hey. Work. Hey. Work. Hey. Work. Work. Hey. Work.
Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson at this stage of Tyson's life is like challenging a retired Olympian to a sprint and calling it a fair race. It's disrespectful, desperate, and entirely on brand for Jake. Andrew Tate didn't mince words about it, and neither should we. Fighting someone 31 years older than you isn't competition, it's elder abuse. While Tate wouldn't stoop that low, Jake likely would, because he seems to lack both humanity and common sense. On paper, Jake and Tate might seem evenly matched. Both are over 6 feet tall and weigh between 190 and 200 pounds. But experience and skill aren't written on paper, and that's where Jake doesn't stand a chance. Tate has been fighting for over a decade, building a career with discipline and skill. Jake, he's been boxing for 4 years, most of which he spent figuring out how to make his next fight go viral. Jake Paul isn't a boxer. He's a walking brand deal trying to stay relevant.
Andrew, fighter, legitimate, badass motherfucker,
Yeah.
strong mentality. Sorry, Tristan Tate is a weak link.
I say let's
He got a bad shoulder. He's shaped like a gingerbread man. I don't want no beef, but that's delusion.
PFO will set this up.
Uh-oh.
A MMA
10
double
million,
tag team match.
10 million for everybody.
You might have a fight. You might have a fight.
Let's talk about Jake Paul for a second. The guy who thought fighting a 58-year-old Mike Tyson was a solid career move. Fighting might be generous though. Exploiting is more accurate. Jake didn't see Tyson as a legendary fighter who's earned his rest. He saw him as a shortcut to grab headlines. And the worst part, Jake genuinely believed this would make him look like a legitimate boxer. Andrew Tate, on the other hand, sees Tyson for what he is, an icon whose legacy deserves respect, not a cheap cash grab. Tate didn't hold back, calling out Jake for what this spectacle truly was, a desperate ploy to stay relevant. He's not wrong. Even Tyson, who's far too classy to openly roast Jake, has subtly acknowledged the glaring differences between someone like Tate and someone like Jake. Tyson respects fighters like Tate because they've earned their influence through grit, hard work, and resilience. They've taken hits, persevered, and emerged stronger. Jake Paul, his antics probably make Tyson roll his eyes so hard they're practically doing laps. The contrast is obvious. Tate carries himself with dignity, while Jake is a walking billboard for his next viral stunt. One's a fighter, the other's just playing pretend.
Two brothers, one cage. Jake Logan,
you, Tristan? Who comes out alive?
You know what? I'm trying so hard to not start internet beefs. I'm really trying not to.
You could say Jake and Logan, man.
Bro,
Don't worry about it.
No, I can't lie. I'm going through life. I'm trying to live peaceful now. I've got Fed agents in my house. Matrix is after me. I'm just trying to live peaceful. But of course, I have absolute faith in myself and my brother, and I know what we've been through, and I know the kind of men.
Respect is everything in combat sports. It's what separates the legends from the frauds. Andrew Tate's respect for Mike Tyson isn't just lip service. It's born from an understanding of the grind, the sacrifices, and the legacy that define a real fighter. Jake Paul, on the other hand, wouldn't recognize respect if it smacked him with a boxing glove. His career is built on cherry-picking opponents, fighters who either don't box professionally or are well past their prime. It's not just embarrassing. It's insulting to the sport and the athletes who dedicate their lives to it. The public reaction to Jake's latest stunt, calling out a 58-year-old Tyson, was brutal and deservedly so. Fans and analysts alike saw through it. Fighting Tyson at this stage isn't bold, it's a blatant cash grab. People were outraged, not just at the disrespect to Tyson, but at Jake's audacity in thinking this would somehow earn him legitimacy in the boxing world. The combat sports community is tired of the smoke and mirrors and practically begging Andrew Tate to step in and give Jake the reality check he's been dodging. And let's not pretend Jake doesn't know what he's doing. He spent years carefully curating his opponents to build a fake legacy, avoiding real fighters at all costs. But Andrew Tate isn't some retired MMA guy chasing a payday. He's a former kickboxing world champion with 76 wins and the kind of experience Jake can only dream of. If these two ever step into the ring, it won't be a fight, it'll be a dismantling. Tate would tear through Jake like a buzzsaw through cardboard, and everyone knows it, including Jake. The media is having a field day with the possibility of this matchup. The internet is buzzing with memes, debates, and predictions. Social media is alight with people calling for Tate to shut Jake down once and for all. For Tate, it's a chance to show the world what a real fighter looks like. For Jake, it's a desperate attempt to prove he's more than a glorified YouTuber. But let's be honest, he's not.